So today I'm going to be teaching you my exact sales strategy that I've used across all my businesses and across all the different means of selling to your clients. So in regards to my accountancy practice, this works for social media, this works for LinkedIn, this works for flyers, this works for in-person networking events, you name it. You use this sales strategy and just adjust it for the environment that you're in or the method in which you're trying to sell to your clients. Now, this is something that I call baby step selling. Baby step selling is essentially a way of breaking down the sales process from someone going from a stranger to somebody who buys from you into as many steps as possible. Now, typically we break this down into about 4 or 5 steps, depending on the sales route that we're using, whether it's social media, business cards, so on and so forth. But essentially, that is what we're going to be trying to do. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you with diagrams, the difference between not using baby step selling, using it, and then also a few tools that we can use at each stage of the sales process, each step of the sales process, to help us to win more clients in our accountancy practices. So strap in. I hope this video is informative. If you've got any questions afterwards, sit in the comments or message me on Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions there. So what you see in front of me here is kind of the old school way that someone would try and sell a service. They try and get someone to go from a stranger to someone who buys something from them. And the way they would try and do this is through an advert, a billboard, a flyer, something like that. And this used to be a lot more effective historically, because historically people were much more trustworthy than they are today. Now, because there's so much going on online, so many scams around, so many different products you can pick from, going from a stranger to a customer is a much larger jump in trust than it used to be. I mean, think about it in the context of being an accountant, okay? For this stranger to be able to give you money for your services, obviously they need to trust you enough that you're going to be able to deliver a service which is of value. You also need to remember that you as their accountant are handling their money, the money that goes through their business, which they work on for 50 hours a week, the business that pays for their children's upbringing, so on and so forth. So this jump in trust here is massive. And that is the key word, trust. So what we want to do is try and make it easier for this stranger to build trust with us to become a customer. And we do that by breaking these down into mini jumps in trust or baby steps in trust. And that is why it's called baby step selling. Now, if you are currently, let's say, trying to sell through social media, what you may be doing is posting a video on social media here so that this stranger may see it. And then you're hoping at some point they will just then message you and ask for your services. Or maybe you post about your services, your pricing, what you do, your zero certification, and then think, well, eventually someone will then want to buy from me. But you're asking someone to make, again, this massive jump in trust. And that's not going to work in the modern day. So I'm now going to draw a new diagram which shows you how we would apply the baby step selling process to get someone to go from a complete stranger on social media in this instance to somebody who will buy from you. But bear in mind, this whole process can be adjusted for whichever of the 8 sales routes that you choose from that I give to my one-to-ones. So I'll see you in a second. So here, hopefully what you can see is something very similar. You want someone to go from a stranger to a paying client, and we want to build trust along the way, but we're breaking down the trust building process into micro steps, into baby steps. So in this instance, how does it work with social media? So the first thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to be posting some free value online. If we post free value, giving somebody some advice about tax or business or cash flow forecast or anything at all, then this is going to build a little bit of trust with this stranger initially. And if we do it well and if we do it effectively, which I'll come on to, this individual will potentially then follow our page. And what they've done there is they've made a small micro step in trust closer to becoming a customer of ours. Now, I'll talk about how we create really good value here later on in the video, but this is the first step that we do. Now, a lot of you will be aware of this part of the process, but what you might miss out now is this next part, which is super, super, super important. And this is when somebody maybe chooses to follow your page, we then want to make them an engaged follower, okay? So to do this, when somebody follows the page, you're then going to want to follow them back. You're then going to want to DM them. Now, there is a certain script that we use in the DMs. You don't just say, do you want to book on a call? We try and actually have a conversation with them. And we do this over a period of 2 to 3 days. Typically, sometimes it can take longer. Sometimes you do it in a day, depending on how things go. But essentially what you've done here is someone has gone from a follower to an engaged follower. And you now start to build a relationship with that individual by doing these things. You then follow the script, it's a chat to close script, which I will share with you later on in this video, to then get them to then book in a free call with yourself. Now, what we're doing here is we've given out free value here. We're typically giving out free value here in regards to answering their questions. Maybe you see they're a baker, you ask them, are you struggling with anything at the moment? Can I help you with anything? You just start giving them free information, free tax planning advice, all in the DMs to build trust. And then you'll go into, when they ask you a question, which is maybe a bit too complex to answer in the DMs, or they've asked a few questions, you can then propose a free value call, okay? When they then get on this call, it's all about following the sales call script. Apologies for the bad writing. But essentially, they jump on the call here to get some free value. You give them free value, but you give them free value in a way which is actually going to be putting them through the sales call process. By this stage, this person has gone from a stranger to a follower, to an engaged follower. You give them free value, to someone who's now on a free consultation with you, which is basically a sales call, where you give them more free value. And now what you'll notice is we're only asking somebody to make a jump from here to here in order to become a paying client of ours. So rather than we're asking someone to go from here to here, or potentially if we are posting on Instagram from here to here, by adding in the stage in the middle here about the engaging with the followers, giving them free value in the DMs, and then giving them free value on a sales call, we're able to make the final jump, which is really the jump that we care about, as small as possible. And at this point, we've already built a rapport with them. They already trust us and they already know what we're talking about because we've given them free value along the way. We just increased essentially the intensity of the way that we give them free value. So that is the overall scope of how we do things here. To put this into context with, if you use a flyer, for example, what you may do here with the flyer, instead of posting on Instagram, rather than the flyer saying I do bookkeeping, VAT, annual account and payroll, on there you'll actually say, here are 7 ways you can save tax as a insert niche, as a dentist, as a consultant, as a whatever it is. Now, you're going to be giving them free value here, and they may then choose to actually read the flyer rather than put it in the bin. On that free flyer, there then may be a QR code, which is scan here for more information on how to do this. Essentially, they're now engaging with your flyer and becoming an engaged user of your content. It doesn't need to necessarily be social media, where you then build trust with them. At that point, when they scan the QR code, it may then say book in a free consultation, which takes them to here. And at this point, you've already built trust with them. They already know what it's talking about. And it's only then going to come down to price at the end as opposed to everything else. So I'm just going to clear the board now and show you how we make each of these stages as effective as possible. Okay, so we have now a clear whiteboard. I'm going to show you how to make each of these stages, again, in the context of social media, for this example, as effective as possible. So the first thing here is it all starts with having a stranger see our content. So what we do here, if you have the facilities to do so, and you may pick some of these, not all of these, is if you want to increase the amount of people seeing your content, this is where we use an ad strategy, okay? It's really, really simple. All we're going to be doing is using our highest performing content from Instagram or wherever we're posting stuff and boosting it, not through the Instagram app, but through the business meta suite to get more eyeballs, more strangers, just to see what's going on. We're not saying buy from us, we're not saying anything, we're just boosting the profile to push it in front of more eyeballs. If we start asking people to click links and the rest of it, we're asking them to make a big jump straight away. So we're just boosting content tactically with the right content to get more eyeballs on our page. So that is what we do in step 1. There are more processes we can do for each step, but that is the majority. Typically what I recommend here to the clients I work with who have excess cash is we invest 15% of the cash that they generated in the previous month. So that's a little, if you made £3,000 in the previous month, we're going to put 15% of that into boosting the posts to get more eyeballs here. Then, how do you make free value that people actually care about? So I have something called the short form checklist. Now, the short form checklist essentially breaks down what makes up a good piece of content. In there, we need to talk about the hook. How do we get someone's attention? We also need to talk about how do we give them enough free value without being too excessive. I'm not sure we can read this, but this says excessive. So we've got a short form checklist, which means essentially this piece of content here is as effective as possible, because the more effective this is, the more likely they are to like it, to engage with it, to follow us. So then we follow the short form checklist. I'll be linking this below somewhere in this video for you to get hold of. Tick. When somebody has followed a page because your free value is good, so you've boosted them potentially to get them to here, they then decide to follow the page because your free value is good, but then become an engaged follower. And this is where we use the chat to close script. So what we don't do at this point is say, hey, do you want to book on a call, or just try and sell things to them. All we're trying to do in the first message is get them to reply. To ask them a question about their business, what they do. When they followed, you may see it's a bakery that's followed you. You might say, hi John, thanks for the follow. The cakes look amazing. I'm guessing you've been baking for 20 years. Something like that, something unique to your new followers, just to get them to reply. Because we just wanted them to make a baby step within this baby step in trust. Just try and get the reply out of somebody, okay? When you then have the reply out of them, you keep asking more questions about their business, and maybe after 3 or 4 messages, you may say, is there anything you're struggling with at the moment? Or you may say, conscious the budget's coming up in a few weeks. Is there anything there that's worrying you? And you just try and get them to tell you something that they're worried about or they're unsure about. So then you can offer them a free value call. Now, again, this is broken down into a lot more details, but that's the kind of overall fundamental part of it. So you follow the ad strategy to boost, to get more eyeballs on your page. You use a short form checklist to increase the amount of people who are actually going to follow your page. And then use a chat to close system to make sure that your DM messaging is as effective as possible, so we can book in more free value calls. And then here, this is where we need to use the sales call script. The absolute key here is to start our sales call with our golden question, which I've covered in previous videos, which is, can you tell me more about your business and why you reached out today, or why you on this call, whatever it is. Now, this question, why you reached out today, or why you're on this call, or they're going to tell you what they're unhappy with, either with their previous accountant or their current accountant who is doing a bad job, or they haven't got an accountant and they say, I don't really understand the legislation. The answer to that question is what then drives which sales call script we use. There are different sales call scripts depending on what answer they give you to that question. The reason we say, can you tell me more about your business and why you reached out today, is because we don't want them to know we're asking this question. So we disguise it in that initial question, which is, can you tell me more about your business? When you follow the sales call script, they are going to be much more likely to want to give you their money. But the key here is we do not give them the price. We do not tell them about this until the end of the call. We want them to already want to work with us at this point in the call. So do not give them the price before they've been through the sales call script. Okay? The final step here is all about frictionless onboarding. So you may before have one client and they've ghosted you potentially after you've won them. Maybe they haven't onboarded, maybe they said they would send you information and they don't. We then follow the frictionless onboarding process. This is all about making the client commit to as little things as possible before you can get a deposit from them. So obviously as accountants, we have to get their ID, their proof of address, do all their sort of verification checks. Before we do anything else, before we ask for information, before we ask for anything, we need to be asking for a very small deposit. When you have a deposit from a client, even if it's £50, whatever it is, and their bill's going to be £1,000, they will do the onboarding process more quickly. So you can do this on the sales call, you can do this immediately after the sales call, whatever it is, but there's a full process we follow here for frictionless onboarding. So rather than half of your clients ghosting you after the sales call, you'll only get maybe 10% of them ghosting you, because it's always going to happen at some point, but we can definitely mitigate that risk. So that is a whistle-stop tour of the baby step selling process. All of these are broken down into a lot more detail, and I can share more information with you on this YouTube channel. But if you want to get more access to this sooner, you can message me on Instagram and I will chat to you there. Equally, if you want to get all the real information, the real detailed stuff, there is a community which you can be a part of with loads of other accountancy practices in, where all this is broken down into like 100 videos in there. So if you're interested in getting hold of that, of course, message me on Instagram as well, and I can sort of show you how it all works. But hopefully that has been useful to you. Hopefully you can apply this to your networking events, to your flyers, your business cards, to whatever it is you're doing to win your clients. Start applying this strategy. Think about, if I'm doing flyers, if I'm doing LinkedIn, if I'm going to networking events, how can I break this down in as much as possible? At what point in a networking event can I give someone free value? How do I get them to engage with me? How do I get them onto a call? Follow this process and you'll see a dramatic increase in the amount of sales you're able to close, the quality of the leads you are able to attract, and the prices you're able to charge. Because when they get to here, they're already pre-sold. They already want to buy from you. So they're more willing at that point to be a bit flexible on their budget to make this work. Cool. Any questions at all, of course, message me on Instagram, Josh Buffin, Accountancy Coach. That's where you'll find me, and I can speak to you in more detail in the DMs.